Media has always shaped stereotypes which are being blindly followed since their introduction. This means that we are actually living by certain images for which we think are right just because we are shown that way. Throughout analyzing the formal elements of mise-en-scene and narrative, I will argue that despite these innovations in representation and gender changes in sitcoms, women are still objectified and can't escape the representation through the male gaze. The situation comedy is uniquely positioned to engage with gender relations and women's role in public and private life. In the early stages, women and femininity have been culturally associated with domesticity and family. These women-driven sitcom narratives feature female protagonists who are young, white, middle class, and heterosexual. And of course, most of these characters are conventionally attractive. The perfect example of this is I Love Lucy. We see Lucy Ricardo, perfect housewife of the post-war America of the 1950s, has big aspiration in showbiz, but little talent as she tries and always fails to shimmy her way to fame and success. She is known for her dissatisfaction with domesticity, but her inability to escape it. That's why I think I Love Lucy is a highly conservative sitcom. Lucy attempts to change her status, fails spectacularly, and is swiftly returned to domesticity. Moving on to the early 60s and 70s, the second wave feminist movement challenged the hyper-domestic ideologies that confined women to the home, arguing for female independence. The example I chose for this era is Roseanne, woman-driven but family-centered sitcom with an explicit feminist backbone. Roseanne is outstanding not just because of its humor and realism, but it picked up the themes of domestic discontent and femininity of I Love Lucy with a twist. Her appearance, her body and movement, her speech are all opposites to normative femininity reflected in media standards surrounding female beauty. She loves her husband and her kids. At the same time, she clearly feels discomfort with domesticity and makes no attempts to suppress it, but still stays in that environment without any changes. These two characters, who are feminists, are introduced through very different representation but still live in domestic place, positioned in traditional roles which they cannot escape. With the evolution of feminism on television, the genre was enriched with a new kind of approach, stressing equal rights and introducing friendship-centered sitcoms like Friends. While Friends integrated some feminist perspectives, they were often countered to promote patriarchal ideas. Even though the representation moved from a domestic approach, males are presented in higher position, with higher paying jobs. In the narrative of Friends, Ross was a professor, Joey acted in various productions, Chandler was a data processor, while Phoebe was a masseuse, Rachel was a barista, and Monica was a chef. The traditional woman's role can be seen in Rachel's storyline. Started off as this idol for independent woman, leaving a man at the altar, breaking away from her father's money and pursuing her dream career in fashion. But when the opportunity arises for Rachel to work for Louis Vuitton in Paris, episode after episode is focused on Ross trying to stop Rachel from leaving just so he could be with her. This all leads up to the end scene of Ross convincing Rachel to stay. Not directly, but the female characters are dominated by the male characters. The last example I will use has maybe the strongest anti-feminism of all the examples, The Big Bang Theory. The problem with this sitcom is that it directly humiliates women because of the lack of masculinity of the male protagonists, the geeks of the show. The narrative builds upon humiliating each other through anti-feministic approaches.
Two women at the same time? Nice job, playa!
Women are clearly objects of status. The ability to score with women is what matters in this show, to exert power over others. And this is presented through the male gaze throughout the whole show. I agree with the statements by Regan Ruthman where she explained that the representation of women changed through the years from domestic approach to more modern topics, but the male ideology stayed. Furthermore, Lynn Spangler stated in the book 50 Years of Sitcom and Feminism that there are intended jokes sewed through these representations. With laughter, people seem to accept serious topics easily, which means that sitcoms are the perfect environment for the representation that women are still inferior to men. Maybe we think it's pretty harmless, but this can lead to the construction of a patriarchal society, and this representation is making an acceptable image of women who serve as pleasure objects to be ruled over or in a visual way, supporting the argument of the male gaze theory by Laura Mulvey.